Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today we have another High Energy Girl on the show, Dr. Katie Nall. Dr. Nall is a Ph.D. in math, and what she does and what she's best known for is how to show others how to dissolve their waffles, worries, anxieties, fears, frustrations, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. All these issues are able to be benefited by a technique called tapping. So let's go and say hello to Dr. Nall. Hey everyone, welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluhide, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you encouragement or an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode. Please also join our awesome Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and I'm looking forward to see you on the inside of that group and hope you enjoy today's show. Hey everyone, this is Tracy, and I have a special announcement. In order for me to help more women age stronger, I have created a 90-day one-on-one coaching program. And the goal here is to teach women over 50 how to age stronger while burning fat and boosting energy without going hungry or living in the gym. If you'd like more information, please hit me up at tracy@highenergygirl.com or friend me on Facebook and send me a message. I have a goal of transforming 1,000 women in the next year, and I hope you are one of them. So, hey, Katie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Tracy. I am so excited to be with a high energy kind of girl. So I love that.
Well, I think you seem to be pretty darn high energy yourself, so it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Awesome. So for the listeners that don't know you yet, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, Tracy, I'm in Florida. I'm a Florida mathematician, which, of course, when you think of high energy, the first thing you think of is math, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I'm a mathematician who helps others dissolve their waffles. I help them dissolve their worries, anxieties, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. I started off doing that, Tracy, when a few years ago, I got a chance to fulfill one of my life dreams, and that was to finish earning my Ph.D. in mathematics education. And doing my research, I wanted to help students that I saw every day who wanted to finish either a technical certificate or an 2-year associate's degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree, and sometimes even a master's degree, and stop because they had one class left to finish. Can you guess what it was?
Math.
Good guess. They couldn't get through it. They were just like, I would talk to people and just even saying the word math, I could watch like the change, the color would change in their bodies, or they would have enough sweat coming off their palms that they could water my plants. And I'm like, all I did was say the word math. What is with this? What do I have to do to get you back to normal? Do I have to say the word history or English, or what do you do? People were so petrified, Tracy, just in the idea of the word math. I mean, it was crazy. And as a mathematician who loves math and who sees math as nothing more than watching patterns and identifying systems and seeing relationships, because to me, that's what math is all about. I was heartbroken to see how much pain people were in. Now, of course, they weren't born that way. They learned it. And they usually learned it from people I call wizards, the ones that have all of this knowledge and are afraid somebody else is going to take it away from them. And so they intimidate and make people feel bad because they don't know as much as they do. So I was looking for a way to help math students overcome fear and anxiety. And in doing that, I found absolutely nothing. There was nothing out there. What they would say, Tracy, is they would say, oh, they need to study harder, they need to get a different teacher, they need to do this. I'm like, I can't even get them to register for the class. How can I get them to do any of this other stuff? So I saw it as a word problem. And as a word problem, what you do is dissect it and figure
Right.
out what information you have and what information you need to get. And I realized that I was too focused in trying to find out how to help people overcome anxiety about math. So I backed up a little bit and said, how do you help people overcome anxiety at all? And that's when the year 2010, I found Nick Ortner's Tapping Summit. It's a 10-day summit. He's still doing it. And every day he interviews somebody different about this process called emotional freedom technique, or EFT, or tapping. And so I watched every day and I was like, I wonder if this would work. So I bought the book, I bought the DVD, I listened to everything, and the students would come in and they were all desperate. And as it turned out, Tracy, desperate people are your best clients because they will try anything, right? Mm-hmm. And so these students were desperate and needed to find a way to attain their goals, really. They wanted to be able to pass the class so that they could get their degree, so they could get the career they wanted, so they could actually live the life that they wanted to live. So I said, well, I don't know, guys, but let's try this. Let's just see if this works. So they would come in my office and I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea what we're doing. Let's just try this. Tracy, one after another came in and said, Dr. Nall, I got an A in math and I've never done that before. I was like, well, good for you. And somebody else came in and said, I got 100 on this test. I'm like, that's great. And then there was this one guy, he came in the doorway and he was as tall and as broad as the doorway. And he came and stood in the doorway and said, Dr. Nall. And I was like, what is it, Scott? I was a little scared because he was a big guy. And he came in and swooped me up off my feet and said, I just want to say thank you, because without your voodoo stuff, I never would have gotten my bachelor's degree. So Tracy, I was thinking, I don't have any idea what I'm doing. I wonder why this is working. So I went back to get certified. I actually am certified in level 1, level 2, level 3, trauma, and quantum, going back to past lives. And it's turned out I had no idea what I was doing. And it still worked. So now that I've been trained and now I have clients literally all over the world that I work with, not only to help them overcome their test and math anxiety, but also to overcome general waffles. So that's my story.
Wow, that is awesome. I am enthralled. And especially about the quantum one, that seems really cool. Wow. So you've been doing this now for 10 years, Katie?
Yeah. I've been doing it for 10 years and I just kind of do it in bits and pieces, right? Because, there's the rest of the stuff going on. I have found, though, during this time of our history, people are really stressed. And so I've been doing more and more of it. Dr. Hans Seeley had identified what he called distress as when you have stressors that create negative feelings. And he said there's 3 criteria for distress. One is uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. He said you have any one of those and it can cause distress, which actually can cause a negative effect to our body.
Sure.
Most of us, Tracy, are feeling all 3 of those. Are feeling uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. So the stress level right now is probably the highest I've ever seen it in my life, and I'm kind of getting up there in age. And so there's been a lot more call to help people learn to manage their emotions. And just like the word emotion has the word motion in it, and how emotions are supposed to move through us and not stay stuck, I'm helping them, showing them themselves how to allow the emotions to move on.
Wow. Okay. I love that. I mean, I'm familiar with Nick Ortner and his sister and their work. And honestly, that's not a practice that I've adopted into my life yet. I tried it. I think I have a couple books about it, but it just wasn't that pull on me as other things have been.
Sure.
But hearing your stories, like how many times would you have to work with these children or these students to get them to where they were when they came to you?
Well, Tracy, it's kind of like everything else. Everybody's individualized, so it depends on the student. Sometimes I just had a client right before our call that I worked with. I'm in Florida, she was in California, and we basically did 2 rounds. And if you don't mind, we might do a round today with you. But we
Oh,
basically did 2 rounds, and she had a lot of anger about a situation. Anger was gone. Now, they have done clinical studies worldwide. Tapping is much more accepted throughout the world. However, in the United States, the Veterans Administration has accepted it as a acceptable practice to help our veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. You see, Gary Craig, who founded it, was an electrical engineer, and he actually went into the veterans hospitals and worked with Vietnam vets. Tracy, these veterans had been hospitalized and drugged for 40 years.
oh my
He
God.
went with them, and within a week of working with them on tapping, they were no longer drugged and no longer hospitalized, and they were fine.
For a week versus 40 years of being drugged. Wow.
I've actually had clients. Now, remember, I'm a mathematician, okay? I'm not a therapist. I don't tell anybody I'm a therapist. I don't pretend to be a therapist. But what I do is I can help people remove negative emotions. And in removing the negative emotions, sometimes people feel the effects within their body. I had a client one time who had this piercing feeling in her back, and she asked me, "Could we tap?" And I was like, "Well, okay, but okay, I'm not a physician, I'm not a chiropractor, I'm like going through all these things." She's like, "Yeah, I know, but I think it's something emotional." And I said, "Okay, we'll try it." So we tried, like, okay, when does it flare up? And I went through all the questions that we usually go through. Tracy, what came out of it is she remembered being stabbed in the back in a prior life, and it had killed her. And once we removed the quantum memory of that, her backache has gone forever.
Wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and as a mathematician, sometimes I struggle with the results that we get from this stuff.
Yeah, right? So I, believe it or not, am more on the math side of things than the history and English. Like I loved math growing up. And like when I was supposed to go to law school, and my law school entrance exam got me that Mensa status. So then I got these books about all that. And have you tried those books? Those are so much fun.
Oh yeah, I grew up on them, and that's when I go to relax at night, I'm doing puzzles and logic things, and yeah, love that stuff.
Yeah, we'll like do it as a family. We'll like make copies and see who finishes first and all that. That's hilarious. I think that most
Yeah.
people aren't that way though. Most people seem to be the other way.
Well, a lot of people are intimidated, and what happens? My professor made a great insight for me, Tracy, is when he said, if you're a physician and you work on a patient and you make a mistake and the patient dies, that patient is buried, and usually the mistake is buried along with it. However, if you're a teacher and you have a bad attitude about math, or you've had a bad experience about math, and whether it's intentional, overt, or covert, you relay that negative feeling you've had about math to 20 little people in your classroom, that gets replicated over and over and over again. And I think that so many years ago, if you didn't have the right answer to a math problem, you were persecuted. I know my husband grew up in South Alabama, and he remembers, I'm trying to remember the student's name. I think his name was Wilbur. And my husband will talk about it now. I'm getting chills just starting to tell you this story. And so this was over 50 years ago, Southern Alabama, and I think the student's name was Wilbur. And my husband said Wilbur was different from the other kids. He came in from a farm. He always had the same bib overalls on, and he didn't always catch on as quickly as the other students. And my husband almost cries telling me the story that when the math teacher would intentionally pick on this student, Wilbur, intentionally, call him up to the front of the class and ask Wilbur a question that he knew Wilbur could not answer, and ask Wilbur to write it on the board. How many people recall those kinds of experiences? Wilbur didn't know the answer. Because Wilbur didn't know the answer, in the 50 years ago in Southern Alabama, the instructor would beat Wilbur because he did not know the answer. Now, as horrific as that was to Wilbur, what about those other kids that were in that classroom watching that if you don't know the answer, this is how you're going to get treated? I mean, I'm getting chills all over just thinking about it. Not so surprisingly, Wilbur did not return to school the following year. Who wants to go to school to get that kind of treatment? And math is an absolute. So you either have the answer or you don't have the answer. And instead of focusing on the technique, which is where we should have been doing all along, we used to focus just on the answer. And if you didn't have the answer, you were wrong. And if you were wrong, you were fill in the blank. And so that history, I mean, even if it didn't happen to you, what if it happened to your parents or your grandparents? You still have that DNA, right, in your blood, and so I really think that that's why so few people are like you and your family, Tracy, and like me, that didn't grow up having such an appreciation and excitement and high energy about math, and instead had a fear and frustration about it.
It's crazy. I think the whole educational system needs to change, but that's a whole another topic.
Yeah, we can do 2 days on that one.
Yeah. I think it was maybe like 5 years ago or maybe 6 years ago, I was subbing in the schools because I just wanted something to do at the time. My business wasn't like it is. And oh my gosh, trying to do math the way they teach math now. As a math teacher, Katie, what do you think about that Common Core crap?
Well, yeah. Well, let me ask you what you think about it, Tracy. No. I think that, well, first of all, I have found personally that education is individualized. And that trying to teach one thing to the entire room when you don't know where each one of these students are in the ladder of understanding, I have a problem with that. So that's my first thing I have a problem. Second thing is America ranks 27 in the world in terms of math ability. Mm-hmm. Tracy, let me ask you, can you name 26 other countries? I can't. So how many other countries that are not even first world countries are ahead of us in math ability? And I think it's because we try so hard to push the right answers instead of getting an understanding of math.
Yeah, it's like the memorization or whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy. And we don't do that with any other subject. We really don't do that with any other subject. In chemistry, you may have to memorize part of the periodic table, but you also have to know the techniques of, bases and acids and things like that. And so there's an understanding. In math, it's like, here's the distance formula, figure it out. It's like, well, how did you get the distance formula? No, here's the distance formula. I was explaining that if we taught English the way we taught math, and, an infant comes up and goes, goo, goo, gaga, mama. We go, no, you can't say mama. You have to say A. Okay, now say A. Okay, now you said A. Now say B. Okay, now say B. Because that's the way we teach math, right? We teach it, okay, you got to count, and then you got to add, and you got to subtract. But really, wouldn't it be more interesting to figure out, gosh, I wonder how much sand is in this ball. How can we figure out how much sand is in this ball? And so doing things like that, right, that are real world, are just so much more meaningful.
Are you currently teaching?
I work at a college right now, and I work there as staff. So I get the blessing of being able to work with students who are struggling with math. And from time to time, I am asked to do adjunct teaching of college level math, which I love. And when I do adjunct teaching, mostly I teach my students how to tap. And you can see the testimonials on both my website and on my YouTube channel that the students say, you may not think this works, but let me tell you, it works. So yeah, from time to time I get to do it.
What a blessing.
Yeah, it is. I consider it a blessing for me. So Tracy, I would love to do a tapping session with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm game. I don't know what I would be doing it on, but yeah.
Well, let's see. How about if we do a general one about, now what state are you in again, Tracy? I forgot.
California.
California. Let's see. There's wildfires going on. There's a vote coming up. There's COVID. Are you guys still in quarantine or masks or anything like that?
Oh, hell yeah. Well, yeah, the mask thing, and I'm not a fan of all that because I understand immune systems, and I used to sell dental masks, and I understand that they work for 30 minutes in a dental office. So, this is something that makes me crazy that they're not. Okay, here's my biggest problem. This is my biggest problem. And I haven't even spoke about this on the show. My problem is that I believe that we need to, as a population, boost our immune system so we can avoid viruses, bacterial infections, cancer, parasites, all that, and not be like isolating. Like my mom has Alzheimer's. She has gone downhill so much in the last 6 months, more so than the last 3 years, because she sits all day in a room watching TV. It's horrible. My mother-in-law is a vibrant, social 86-year-old who had a great social life, but she's gone downhill because being connected as a community with their friends is like one of the top things that keep people aging in health, right? So for me, with my own personal life, with my family and stuff, it hasn't affected us that much, but I'm more passionate about what's happening to everyone else. And, you know, it really pisses me off.
Oh, great. Let's tap on that.
Okay.
Okay. So which part of it pisses you off? Is it the part about the mask? Is it a part about the quarantine? Is it a part? Tell me let's identify exactly what part pisses you off the most.
The part pisses me off the most is that we're all quarantined and we have this whole, like all these rules for a 0.0001 or whatever of an extremely low death rate. And I think it's ridiculous. I think more people than that have died from COVID. I mean, and I would never say that, oh, I want people to die. I mean, clearly not. But I think that more other people have suffered from losing their income, losing their health, you know, having the fear, which we know is so unhealthy. And we should have been focusing on boosting immune system from day one so that we can prevent disease in all forms instead of depressing our immune system. And what's going to happen now with the, you know, flu season coming up, everybody's immune system is going to be lower than it was last year. So they're going to be more susceptible to all illness. And I just think it's a hot mess.
Well, let's do that. So everything that we say I'm going to ask you to tap, and I'm going to ask you to repeat words, but they all have to be your words. So if I say something that you go, nah, that's not true, or, you know, I wouldn't say it that way, I'd say it a different way. Would you restate it so that I can state it in your words?
Yeah.
Okay. And is this a true statement? Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Yes.
Okay. And from 0 to 10, how pissed off are you? Where 0 is like, no big deal, I'll pass, and 10 is the most pissed off you've ever been.
Probably an 8.
Okay, let's go. So you start on the side of the hand, and you can use either hand, and you tap, and those watching can tap along too. And you can actually say what we're saying. You may have an effect that's called borrowing benefits, which means this may not affect you at all, but something else may trigger. So away we go. So repeat after me. Even though. When I think about all this to do with COVID and the quarantine and the mask and all of it.
When I think of all the COVID and mask and everything,
I get so pissed off. And oh, I forgot to ask you. And I feel it. Where do you feel it from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes? That feeling of being pissed off.
Probably like in my stomach.
In my stomach. And I feel it in my stomach. Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway. Even though I'm so pissed off in my stomach. When I think about all of this COVID stuff. And the way everybody's behaving with it. Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway. Even though every time I think about the way we're handling COVID. I feel so pissed off in my stomach. Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway. And then on the top of your head, and you can use one hand or the other or both, it doesn't matter. So pissed off in my stomach.
I'm so pissed off in my stomach.
And then on the edge of your eyebrow, right above your eye. Ah, so pissed off in my stomach. And then on the side of the eye, right between the eye and the hairline. So pissed off in my stomach. And then right where I hold all my bags, under your eye. I'm so pissed off in my stomach. And then under the nose. I am so pissed off in my stomach. And then under your lips. I am pissed off in my stomach. And then on your collarbone, you can use both hands and say, so pissed off in my stomach. And then the last place is 4 inches under your arm, right on your ribs. And I'm so pissed off on my stomach. Now blow all your air out. And I bet you have some water nearby. And take a sip of water. So Tracy, when you think about all of that from 0 to 10 and how pissed off you are in your stomach, do you notice any change?
Well, I guess I'm not really thinking about it, like the whole issue at the moment, because we just did all that. So I guess it's diminished because I'm not all fired up. You know what I mean? Okay. So you see me here, and then you ask me, and I get here, and now I'm back down.
Okay. And the thing of it is, the studies have shown that when they compare EFT, emotional freedom technique, along with EMDR, eye movement desensitization, what's the R? I can't forget what the R stands for, and cognitive behavior therapy, which is talk therapy. If they look at those three, that EMDR and EFT are way more effective than cognitive behavior therapy. The thing is with EMDR is you have to be sitting next to a therapist to be able to do that because you may have an abreaction. But with tapping, you can do it yourself. And that's the amazing part, is that you can, if you see me driving around town, half the time I'm driving like this. I can't believe that guy pulled out right in front of me. What do they think they're doing? to so that I can get myself back in control. Because what happens is that I have to release those negative emotions so that the positive emotions can come in, and so that I can think clearly. Because when I have the negative emotions and I'm holding on to them, it's causing some kind of energy blockage that is affecting me physically and energetically. And so releasing it, allowing it to be an emotion and to motion on, is what allows me to have clarity, to make good decisions, to make decisions about mask wearing and how I'm going to handle all of this. But it's in the releasing the emotion that makes such a difference.
Have you done any work with people who have a problem with emotional eating?
Personally, I have not done work with people who've done emotional eating. However, we have a mastermind group, and we had a member in there, and in the mastermind we do tapping. And in there we had somebody who had a problem with emotional drinking. And when she asked to tap on that, I was like, whoa. And I started off with my, okay, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I went through all of that stuff. And she's like, no, there's something emotional going with it. And I'm like, okay, we'll do it. And we did a short kind of version, kind of like I did with you, right? And then when we had our next meeting about a week later, nobody could see it, but I had my fingers crossed under the desk. And I hesitantly said, so how's it going over there? And because we were doing Zoom, right? And she had said that when she thinks about it, she starts drinking and cannot stop drinking. And I was like, oh, that's probably not good. And she buys more so that there's always enough around. And it's like, oh. So when we finally got to her, I said, so how's it going over there? Well, Tracy, she started on this long soliloquy and kept me going. And I'm like starting to sweat, like, oh my God, is she going to be okay? What's happening? Oh God. And she finally got to the point and she said, and I have not had anything to drink since that tapping session. I was like, say that again? What was that? So it turns out that when you talk about emotions, Tracy, it doesn't really matter how we manifest it, whether it is emotional eating, emotional drinking, shopping, right? So many of us are doing emotional shopping right now because there's that frustration of not being able to go out and run around and just look at stuff, right? But anytime we have a negative emotion, this process works. It is so amazing. It's really great.
I want to hire you to do a Zoom session for like a class to do for emotional eating. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I know that that's a big problem for women, and I want to have like an expert series of trainings that I can help people with, and do like a little workshop or something. Is that something that you...
I love sharing this information. And like I said, it's individual. So different people have different things going on. One person may eat because they feel abandoned. Another person may eat because they don't feel worthy. Another person, so they all have different reasons. So as long as, but we can do workshops and, journaling on why you're eating and come up with that. But yeah, I'd love to be able to help others. That is so gratifying to be able to do that. Yes. Thank you.
Well, I'm enthralled by this, and I love hearing from you. I love your energy. I help women over 50. I'm guessing you qualify.
Yes.
And I think that this is a huge, huge thing that, I believe that most people don't get overweight from eating because they're too hungry. I know it's at a deeper level. And so, that would be super, Katie.
Oh yeah, I'd love to be able to do that and to help others. That would be rich. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like how big is the tapping community? Is this like it's not quite mainstream yet, right? Like, would you say it's hitting that tipping point, or where do you think it's at?
So I've been doing this for 10 years. And what I have found is that Canadians and people from the UK and Europeans are like, oh yeah, let's tap. They're familiar with tapping. Americans, not so much. Most of my work that I do, Tracy, is telling people that, first of all, what you think is your problem is not your problem. It's usually emotional, and there are ways to help emotions. And a lot of Americans are like, well, I have to take a drug. In fact, I had one client, we're writing a book together. She came to me and she said, Katie, and she was a friend. She said, Katie, I need to focus. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll tap on focusing. That seems innocuous, right? So I said, here's my intake form. Fill out the intake form. We'll work together. So I get the intake form back, Tracy. And the reason why I can tell you all this is because we're writing a book about this. The name of the book is From Depressed to Success. That gives you an idea of what went on. And so I'm looking at the intake form and I'm reading it. I'm going, nope, 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 nope. I'm not qualified to help her. I'm not qualified. First of all, she admitted she was clinically depressed. She's seeing a therapist once a week. She's not on one, but she's on 2 antidepressants. I'm like, no. So I went to my mentor and I'm like, I have a friend who wants me to do this, and I don't think I'm qualified. And my mentor says, you're right, you're not qualified. And I said, so I went back to my friend. I said, I'm not qualified. And my friend said, I still want to work with you. I'm like, I'm not qualified. I still want to work with you. So what she finally came back with is she said, I've talked to my therapist. My therapist said tapping would help. And my therapist agreed. And I'm like, if your therapist agrees, okay, we can do this. We had one 1-hour session once a month for 6 months. 6 months later, we were talking, and we had become even closer friends, as you might imagine by then. And as we were talking, she was like, I was walking the other day with a friend who used to be my therapist. And I'm like, well, stop. What do you mean used to be your therapist? I thought we were doing this with your therapist. And she's like, no, I told you. I'm like, nope, you did not tell me what is going on. She said, I'm no longer on my antidepressants. 2, I'm no longer on my antidepressants. And my therapist said I don't need to see her anymore. I'm like, you were supposed to tell me all this stuff. But 6 1-hour sessions. And she had been going to therapy literally for years.
Wow. What a gift. What a blessing. That's amazing.
Yeah. But half of it, Tracy, is explaining to people. I mean, you're open to this because you're the high energy girl and you are like into all of this stuff that works instead of just going with mainstream. And so you're a little more open to it. Not everybody is. I've had some interesting conversations with people who are saying, is this Christian? And I'm like, oh, okay, we're not mentioning anything at all about religion or spirituality. Not sure where that came from. But yeah, I mean, I'm a spiritual person and I'm doing it and it seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, everybody's so judgmental. Like literally, I mean, I'm Reiki level 3. I'm in this angel academy that I was invited to be in. I am into all of that, but I'm still a Christian. I still do my prayers and still read my, scripture. But it's like people just get so legalistic and just start wanting to judge. And honestly, that's one of the things that pushed me away from the church because, it's like I teach yoga and they're like, oh, it's like, holy whatever.
I mean, there's a great scripture that says, don't talk to anyone about the speck in their eye until you get the log out of yours.
Yes.
And I love that. It's like, yeah, let's check out everybody's logs first.
Exactly. So I don't even go down that pathway. So Katie, where can people find you?
So my website is a play on words, because, that's what I do. But my last name is Nall, Nall. So you take Nall and you add the word edge, EDGE. And so my website is www.knowledgeco.com. So it's knowledgecompany.com. They can call me. I always give my phone number. Nobody calls me. You can be the first one to call me. My phone number is 772 480-0541. And if you forget all that, you can email me at hello@drnall.com. So it's HELLO@DRNALL.com. I have a YouTube channel. My TEDx talk is on there, where I relate my story about teaching this to math students. So yeah, it's all there.
And we'll have all the links on the show notes page so people can find it easily. And are you on social media at all?
Oh, yeah. I'm on Facebook as Katie Nall, Ph.D. I'm on LinkedIn as Katie Nall, Ph.D. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. Although I haven't figured out Instagram. I can't get past that age barrier. So I need to get trained on that.
Yeah, I find it's best. Like, I'm just pretty much focused on Facebook right now because there's so much out there that Facebook seems to be the best. So
yeah, me too. But once Facebook goes away, I have no idea what I'm going to do. But I get to meet like super interesting people like you, Tracy. I'm so excited to be able to meet you.
Aw, you're so sweet. Is that how you found me on Facebook?
Yeah.
Cool.
I actually looked you up. And I listened to some of your podcasts. I was like, wow, she's good. Was it Brandon who was talking about vitamins and minerals? And yeah, that was really interesting.
Oh, yeah. That was a funny show. I was kind of in hysterics talking to him. I don't know if you noticed.
That was good.
I'll get back to that. But I just want to thank you, Katie, so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure, and I'm definitely going to take you up on and get you, a training with my tribe. So
that's great. Well, thank you, Tracy. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited. That was amazing. I cannot wait to learn more from her, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you'd like more information about Dr. Nall so that you can help your waffles, please head on over to the show notes page at highenergygirl.com/show. Go out and make it a great day, everyone. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.